Hello and welcome back to TVP World. My name is Alex Simlinski and you're watching World Talks. Now, the BLIK phenomenon in Poland has to do with its rapid adoption and transformation into the country's dominant mobile payment system. This driven by its versatility, convenience, and security. And now some more news from the financial sector in Poland is that alcohol producers have been unofficially informed that the Ministry of Finance plans to raise excise tax by 15% next year and by 10% in 2027. And a 4-day working week. Is this feasible, and what would it mean for employers? With us now to discuss all this is Paweł Wojciechowski, the former Polish finance minister and deputy foreign minister. Hello and good morning.
Hello, very nice to be here.
It's great to have you. So now, for those who are unfamiliar with the BLIK system in Poland, how would you explain to a foreign viewer what it is?
Well, it's like, I would say, it's something between the banking system, infrastructure, and credit card, because you can pay online, you can pay in store using BLIK, and you can withdraw cash from ATMs, and also you can transfer directly, peer-to-peer transfers instantly. So it's a very, very interesting solution. It's very convenient and very versatile, user-friendly, convenient, and inexpensive to the users. So it's based on the bank's account-to-account application. So it's connected to the bank accounts. You don't need even to put an app on the telephone. It's really a great success story of technology implementation in the banking sector in Poland, and it grows and tries to expand to other countries as well.
Now, let's have a look at some numbers now when it comes to what you just described. So since the beginning of 2025, Poles have used BLIK to make a total of nearly 1.4 billion transactions. That's nearly a quarter more than in the same period of last year. You've mentioned a lot of positives of this solution, but what else is there that makes this so popular?
Well, what makes it popular is that you don't need to put an app. You know, if you have a bank account, you already have a BLIK in your telephone. In fact, you have tied in the bank account to your phone number. So this is what makes it interesting. And in fact, you know, since the inception, you know, it was in 2013, then 6 major Polish banks agreed to implement this national mobile payment system funded by Polski Standard Płatności. That's a company that was funded, and actually it's over 10 years it's in operation. So since February 2015, BLIK is operating, and it's very successful. Other countries you have as well some type of some payments like that, but none of them is so versatile as BLIK. This is what is the major strong point, strong strength of a BLIK in potential expansion in Europe. And you have already in 2023, BLIK surpassed 1.7 billion transaction in 1 year. That was the highest among European mobile payment systems. Now it's 2.4, as you mentioned, billion transactions already. So it's an increase, around 17 million users in Poland. So it's really a household standard today in Poland for making payments.
So household standard and a Polish success story when it comes to technology in the finance center. You mentioned expansion in Europe. Where is BLIK headed to next?
Well, it is already had an acquisition of Bayamo in Slovakia in 2022. It's entering in Romania, trying to kind of agree on expansion in Germany and Czech Republic and Netherlands and Italy. But of course it's difficult because you need every place, you need some approval from the regulatory authority, financial authority. And in fact, there are some problems, for BLIK as well, because it's not in a euro currency. So there's a mismatch between Polish zloty and the euro currency, and that creates a little bit of concerns with some users. But of course, it's being taken care of, because the conversion is very inexpensive, So in fact, you have a lot of active users, you have a lot of functions. It's based on the banking infrastructure. It's can really compete with big wallets like PayPal, Apple Pay, and others. But also, with local schemes such as Bison in Spain and Swish in Sweden, and others, who are created, which are very similar to BLIK. So that is a question: is how BLIK can evolve in Europe based on this approach to have standard payment, mobile payment standards for this type of applications in the single euro payment area. That's just a key question. Of course, Poland, if it adopts euro, that would be much easier to enter into other countries as well.
All right, now let's move on to the excise tax that I mentioned at the beginning. So the Polish Ministry of Finance has announced that it will increase the excise tax in alcohol by 15% in 2026 and then 10% in 2027. What will be the impact on consumers, and do you think this might lead to the development of a black market, and just how real is this threat?
Answering the second question, I don't think so. Of course, the government is installing the roadmap of raising excise tax of 20%, but 5% is it was supposed to be raised this year, but now we'll be raising by 15%. And that is about, for the customer, usual customer that consumes on average in Poland 11 liters of liquors, of alcohol. That would mean on average, that would mean around 100 to 150 zloty per adult person who consumes alcohol. Of course, Poland is consuming 11 liters of alcohol per year for the people age 15 plus. But it's about twice the world average, about a little bit higher than the European average. So we need to think about, try to look for what you call a double dividend, which is looking for both revenues, which fiscal revenues, but at the same time, lose the social harm that you get from excessive alcohol drinking.
So now, given that you mentioned fiscal revenues, I want to ask, so how can we achieve both of these goals? And that would be increased budget revenue, but also at the same time, public health.
Well, it's always a trade-off, you get, for example, today you have from excise tax, for alcohol, around between 20 to 25 billion zloty. That includes VAT, of course, because it's on the top of its VAT. Second, if you have the social economic costs of alcohol-related diseases, incidents, car incidents and the like, you have around, you're talking about between 55 to 90 billion zloty per year. So you have a ratio of 2 to 3 times higher cost of health, health-related and other, related to socioeconomic impact of alcohol abusive drinking, versus this fiscal cost of excise tax, which is implemented for alcohol. Plus, you have to think that you have alcohol tax, excise on alcohol, which is only second to actual third after the excise tax to tobacco, nicotine, and fuel. So, in fact, it's not the first item in revenues. A question is how to approach this policy. In Poland, we follow pretty much the WHO, the World Health Organization, and OECD recommendations to concentrate on the hard liquor taxes. So, in fact, vodka, for example, a bottle of vodka has 40% of ethanol. Of course, beer and wine has much less. So if you raise the tax, we actually hit heavy drinking of abusive, drinking of vodka, and that is the big rise. So if you're talking about, that is something that is the most important, and this has been a good practice in other countries, especially Nordic countries. That they increase very much excise tax on hard liquor, and this actually drops the demand, because there is always, in the economics you call it elasticity effect, sensitivity. You translate this into the situation that you have the raise of 10% increase in price, that brings about 3 to 5% drop in consumption. So this has been, following this policy, it has been created a situation in which actually in Poland, over the last 10 years, you had much steeper decrease of alcohol consumption in comparison to the other EU countries. Actually, you had a steep decrease, especially in drinking beer, and our excise tax on beer is much higher, on wine as well.
Still one more topic I'd like to ask you about. And that is the 4-day working week. A lot of people are interested in looking how this is going to develop. So how feasible is this in Poland? Do you see it happening? And what might be the potential results for employers and employees? And we have about 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Well, this is something that is only proposed as a pilot project since August, and we're talking about shorter daily hours, and of course with no pay changes. So it's a testing for 1 year, and most of the companies that are allowed to participate are those who are working on the typical labor contracts. And of course, you cannot cut or worsen the conditions. And the thing is, that people are complaining, that some of the companies complain, is that those grants that are being offered to those companies would be taxable income, so it would create a high income tax and health contribution as well. So that is something that is being towards. Of course, the Minister of Finance announced did not announce that would lower or create an exclusion for this item. So in fact, you can say that it's a pilot, maybe first one in Central and Eastern Europe, to test the 4-week day, 4-day weeks, and other reduced time models, which are being implemented in some countries. For example, Belgium is one of the first countries that implemented the European Union. It's flexible hours for the weeks for all the workers in Belgium. So let's see how it goes.
That's right. All right. We're going to have to wait to see how it goes. Paweł Wojciechowski, the former Polish finance minister and deputy foreign minister, thank you so much for breaking it all down for us here this morning on TVP World. Great having you.
Thank you.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World Talks. But for more interviews like this one, news, updates, and commentary, make sure to stay tuned to TVP World.